Good Saturday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for Saturday, the 4th of November. Today we are reading together in Second Chronicles chapter 12, which is going to show us the unfortunate downfall of King Rehoboam of Judah. Yesterday, we saw where he had done some things that were good from a military perspective. There were some things that he had done that were good from a spiritual perspective, that he had the Levites, and that the people recognized that out of the two kingdoms that had come from united Israel, that Judah seemed to be more in line with faithfulness to Yahweh. So the Levites and the priests and others who wanted to be faithful to God, who determined in their hearts to seek Yahweh, they followed the Levites to Jerusalem to become a part of Rehoboam's kingdom. Unfortunately, once we get here to chapter 12, we're going to see that was very much far too short of a reality, that they did not take very long for them to turn away from faithfulness to Yahweh. So we're going to notice that here in Second Chronicles chapter 12. We'll read that here, Second Chronicles chapter 12, verse number 1. Second Chronicles 12, verse number 1, when Rehoboam had established his sovereignty and royal power, he abandoned the law of Yahweh, he and all Israel with him, because they were unfaithful to Yahweh. In the 5th year of King Rehoboam, King Shishak of Egypt went to war against Jerusalem with 12,000 chariots, 60,000 cavalrymen, and countless people who came with him from Egypt, Libyans, Sukkim, and the Cushites. He captured the fortified cities of Judah and came as far as Jerusalem. Then the prophet Shemaiah went to Rehoboam and the leaders of Judah who were gathered at Jerusalem because of Shishak. He said to them, "This is what Yahweh says, you have abandoned me. Therefore, I have abandoned you to Shishak." So the leaders of Israel and the king humbled themselves and said, "Yahweh is righteous." And when Yahweh saw that they had humbled themselves, Yahweh's message came to Shemaiah, "They have humbled themselves, and I will not destroy them, but grant them a little deliverance. My wrath will not be poured out on Jerusalem through Shishak. However, they will become his servants, so that they may recognize the difference between serving me and serving the kingdoms of other lands." So King Shishak of Egypt went to war against Jerusalem. He seized the treasuries of Yahweh's temple and the treasuries of the royal palace. He took everything. He took the gold shields that Solomon had made, and King Rehoboam made bronze shields to replace them and committed them into the care of the captains of the guards who protected the entrance to the king's palace. Whenever the king entered Yahweh's temple, the guards would carry the shields and take them back to the armory. When Rehoboam humbled himself, Yahweh's anger turned away from him, and he did not destroy him completely. Besides that, conditions were good in Judah. King Rehoboam established his royal power in Jerusalem. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he became king, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city of Yahweh, the city Yahweh had chosen from all the tribes of Israel to put his name. Rehoboam's mother's name was Naamah, the Ammonites. Rehoboam did what was evil because he did not determine in his heart to seek Yahweh. The events of Rehoboam's reign, from the beginning to the end, are written in the events of the prophet Shemaiah and the seer Iddo concerning genealogies. There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam throughout their reigns. Rehoboam rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. His son Abijah became king in his place. And that is Second Chronicles chapter 12. 3 years, we remember, going back to chapter 11, verse number 17, 2 Chronicles 11:17. So they strengthened the kingdom of Judah and supported Rehoboam, son of Solomon, for 3 years, because they walked in the ways of David and Solomon for 3 years. So for 3 years, there was faithfulness that was maintained in Judah. But once Rehoboam had established his sovereignty and power, once he had gained strength, once he gained what I would probably understand as being stability once he had gained real stability as a leader in Jerusalem, the text says that he abandoned the law of Yahweh. He abandoned the law of Yahweh. So what does that mean? Well, if we go to verse number 5, and we see the message that Yahweh sent to Rehoboam and the leaders through Shemaiah, Yahweh says, "You have abandoned me." Hold on. I thought he had abandoned the law of Yahweh. Well, what this tells us very clearly is that abandoning Yahweh's law means abandoning Yahweh himself. And because of that, Yahweh had abandoned, had abandoned Israel and had allowed Shishak to come in and to oppress them because they were unfaithful, verse number 2, to Yahweh. In the 5th year of King Rehoboam, so notice 3 years of faithfulness, 1 year to set up the punishment, and then the 5th year, the punishment came. So it didn't take very long for Yahweh to show his displeasure with with Judah over their unfaithfulness. So Shishak comes up with many people, and it says in verse number 4 that he captured the fortified cities of Judah and came as far as Jerusalem. All those fortified cities that Rehoboam had put so much effort into starting up, to reinforcing, to supplying, to be able to defend the nation. And from verses 5 through 12 of chapter 11, the cities of let's see here. The cities of Bethlehem, Etam, Tekoa, Beth-zur, Soko, Adullam, Gath, Marashah, Ziph, Adorim, Lachish, Azekah, Zorah, Aijalon, and Hebron. All these fortified cities in Judah and Bethlehem. Everything that Rehoboam had done to fortify them and to strengthen them, to stabilize them, to be these defense forces for his kingdom, they're gone. They're done. They're overtaken. All of that effort was nothing. It was nothing when Yahweh was not involved. Because Yahweh was not involved, the people suffered mightily. The people suffered mightily. Yet in response to this message from Shemaiah, the leaders of Israel and King Rehoboam, they humbled themselves before Yahweh, and they acknowledge that Yahweh is righteous. No, he is just, and he has the right to punish us for our sins. Yahweh recognizes this humility and sends another message to Shemaiah and says, because they have humbled themselves, I will not destroy them completely. I'm going to give them a little deliverance. My wrath will not be poured out on Jerusalem through Shishak. However, what you're going to learn is it's a lot better to serve me than to serve the nations of the world. It's a lot better to serve me than to serve the nations of the world. It's kind of like what we talked about this past Wednesday, right? That whenever it comes to serving humans, a lot of times you're going to get the humans doing what's best for them to your neglect as the people who are serving them. But whenever it comes to Yahweh, again, he does things for our good. Yes, he is glorified, but again, he cares for us and wants what is best for us. And Yahweh's making that point here. You didn't listen to me. You abandoned me. You rejected me. So I'm going to show you what that really feels like. I'm going to show you the cost of not being faithful to me and why it is so much better to serve under me than to serve under human rulers. Shishak's able to come in against Jerusalem. He's able to take the treasuries of the temple, the treasuries of the royal palace. He took all the gold shields that Solomon had made. And so now the nation is downgraded to bronze shields, which again are so much lesser in nature. But again, because of Rehoboam's humility, Yahweh did not destroy him completely. He did not destroy him completely. And it's kind of humorous to me, just the end of verse 12. Besides that, conditions in Judah were good. I mean, yeah, I guess besides the nations of Egypt coming in just ransacking you, but we understand, right, that besides that, everything was fine. Again, this is a mercy from Yahweh. This is absolute mercy from Yahweh that Judah at this time was not wiped off the map. And that's because of the humility of Rehoboam. Because he saw what he had done, and the leaders had recognized what they had done, and they repented of that. They humbled themselves before Yahweh, recognizing that he was righteous and he was just. So whenever we have then the conclusion and the summarization of Rehoboam's reign, unfortunately, we recognize that on the whole, he did what was evil before Yahweh. And the reason he did what was evil before Yahweh is because he did not do what the people had done. Remember the people, going back to verse number 16 of chapter 11. 11 of verse 16, going back there, we see that the people from all over Israel, those from every tribe of Israel who had determined in their hearts to seek Yahweh their God, followed the Levites to Jerusalem to sacrifice to Yahweh, the God of their ancestors. They made that decision. Unfortunately, Rehoboam himself did not make that decision. And because of that, the description of his life is that he did what was evil. He did what was evil. He did what was evil because he did not determine to seek Yahweh with all his heart. The rest of the text tells us there was constant civil war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And then Rehoboam exits stage left, and his son Abijah comes into the picture. Remember, we were told about him in chapter 11 and verse 22, and we'll see what his reign entails in our reading tomorrow in chapters 13 and 14. We're going to cover a couple of chapters tomorrow just because they flow well together, not really a great chapter break in these. So we'll look at Judah's king Abijah, and then we'll also see Judah's king Asa and the Cushite invasion that will take place as well. Again, all this shows us this truth and this principle that we've noticed time and time again, that faithfulness to Yahweh is going to lead to blessings. God doesn't send punishment against his people whenever they're doing what's right, but it's whenever they turn away from him, when they abandon his law, which is abandoning him. Remember, that law is the covenant between him and his people. That faithfulness to the law, loyalty to the law, is faithfulness to Yahweh, is loyalty to Yahweh. And when they fail to do that, when they abandon that, the only proper results is for Yahweh to abandon them. Although there is still that mercy, there's still that patience with Yahweh, that when they humble themselves, he did extend mercy, and he did spare them from complete destruction. If you have any questions about this text here in 2 Chronicles chapter 12, please feel free to leave that in the comments section below. And I do appreciate so much you taking some time to read along with me here in our daily Bible reading on this Saturday. Hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. May God bless you in all that you do. And I do hope you'll take some time to read along with me in the morning as we read together, as I mentioned, from 2 Chronicles chapter 13 and 14, a couple of short chapters, so not a very strenuous read at all. So I hope you'll take some time to read along with me then. Take care, and God bless.